Okay, so this lesson is on factoring polynomials. So they are going to give you one factor, and you're going to need to find the others. And it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. So let's just dive right in. So this is my factor. I'm going to start by doing the opposite. So if it says +1, I'm going to use a -1 in my little half box. Okay? And then I'm going to take every coefficient and I'm going to bring it down. So this x to the third has a 1, so I'm going to put a 1. The x squared has a 2, so I'm going to put a 2. There's really a 1 right here, but it's a -1, so I'm actually going to bring down a -1. And same thing with this 2 at the end, I'm going to bring down a -2. So let me go through those steps one more time. Start with your factor and take the opposite. If it's a +1, I'm going to use a -1. If it was a -1, I would have used a +1. And bring down every coefficient. The x to the third had a 1, the x squared had a 2, the x had a -1, and there was a -2 at the end. Okay, so I'm going to use synthetic division to divide this factor out. So you bring your first number down, so I'm going to bring 1 down, and then I'm going to multiply right here. -1 times 1 is -1. You put your answer right here. Then we're going to add these. 2 plus -1 is 1. Okay? Then we're going to multiply again. So I'm going to multiply here. -1 times 1 is -1. Again, I'm going to add these. -1 plus -1 is -2. Then I'm going to multiply again. -1 times -2 is a +2. And again, I'm going to add. -2 plus 2 is 0. Alright, so I know you're probably confused. We're going to do more. But some things I want you to take away from what I just did. This last number should always be a 0. If it's not a 0 on this worksheet, then you did something wrong. Now you could get a remainder, which means it doesn't go in evenly, but this worksheet is telling you these are factors, so you should always get a 0. Okay, so this is the number at the end. This number gets the x, and this number gets the x squared. So what we really have is an x squared plus a 1x. You can put the 1x. I'm just going to put x. And then -2 at the end. Okay, so that's my new quadratic after I take out the x plus 1. So now I need to factor this. And if you remember factoring, I like to make the t-chart. First times last is -2. And your middle number, remember there's a 1 there. So you want to figure out what you can multiply to get -2 and add to get a +1. So the only option is you could do 1 times -2, or you could do -1 times 2. That's the only way you can get to -2. And only one of those will add up to be a +1, and it ends up being the -1 and the +2. So my factors are an x minus 1 and an x plus 2. So that's going to be your answer, because I think, let me double check the directions. It says, given a polynomial and one of its factors, find the remaining factors. So those are your other factors, an x minus 1 and an x plus 2. All right, let's do another one. Again, take your factor. That's where we're starting. Do the opposite. So it says +3, so I'm going to use a -3. Then I'm going to bring down all my coefficients. The x to the third has a 1. The x squared has a 3. The x has a -4. And the 12 is a -12, so I'm going to put a -12. Okay, bring your first number down, multiply right here. -3 times 1 is -3. We add those. 3 plus -3 is nothing, 0. We multiply. -3 times 0 is 0. Put your answer here. We add these. -4 plus 0 is -4. We're going to multiply again. -3 times -4 is a +12. We're going to add these again. -12 plus 12 is 0. So I know I did my math right because I got a 0 at the end. Again, this is your number, this is your x, and this is your x squared. So I have an x squared. There is no x, it's 0x, and then I have a -4. So that's my quadratic. I want to factor this down. It's a perfect square, and if you remember with perfect squares, you split up your x squared into an x and an x. Your signs are a plus and a minus, and the square root of 4 is 2 and 2. Again, if you wanted to do the t-chart again, first times last is -4, and there is no middle, so I'd put a 0 there. So to get 4, you could do 2 times -2, and that gives you -4, and 2 plus -2 gives you 0. So those were my answers, a positive 2 and a negative 2. Okay, let's do another one. Start with your factor. So it's going to be a negative 5 in my half box because you do the opposite. My coefficients are 1 and 2 and negative 33 and negative 90. Bring down my 1. Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. We're going to add these and get negative 3. We're going to multiply and get 15. We're going to add negative 33 and 15 and get negative 18. We're going to multiply negative 5 times negative 18. Should be 90, but let's double check. Negative 5 times negative 18 is 90. We're going to add these and get 0. So my answer is x squared, 1x squared, minus 3x, minus 18. So factoring, let's do my t-chart. First times last is negative 18. My middle is negative 3. So what's that's going to be? That's going to be a 2 and 9 won't work. 3 and 6. So it's going to be a negative 6 and a positive 3. Right? Those multiply to give me negative 18 and add to give me negative 3. So my factors are an x minus 6 and an x plus 3. Alright, I'm going to let, oh no, this one's different. Don't try this one on your own. Alright, so start with our factor. I got a 4, because the opposite of minus 4 is plus 4. My coefficient with my x to the third is 1. With my x to the squared is a negative 6. Now if you look at this problem, you notice there is no x. So we have to put a 0 as a placeholder, okay? Because there is no x. You got to put a 0 for that. And then it ends with a positive 32. So let's bring our first number down. 4 times 1 is 4. Add these and get negative 2. Multiply and get negative 8. Add these and get negative 8. Multiply 4 times negative 8, you get negative 32. Add those and get 0. So answer, my quadratic, well not answer, but my quadratic is going to be x squared minus 2x minus 8. Let's do our t-chart. First times last is negative 8 and your middle is negative 2. So that's going to be a negative 4 times 2. That multiplies to give you negative 8 and adds to give you negative 2. So your answer is going to be an x minus 4 and an x plus 2. Okay, let's set this one up too. I'm going to use a positive 2 because x minus 2, the opposite's positive 2. My x to the third is a 1. This one doesn't have an x squared. So again, I got to put a 0 there as a placeholder. Then my x is a negative 19 and I end with a positive 30. So bring your 1 down. 2 times 1 is 2. Add those and get 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Add those and get negative 15. Multiply those and get negative 30. Add those and get 0. So it's x squared plus 2x minus 15. Make our t-chart. First times last is negative 15. Your middle is a 2. So that's going to be 5 and negative 3. Those will multiply to give you negative 15 and add to give you 2. So your answer is an x plus 5 and an x minus 3. So that's it. If you'll go try the worksheet and let me or Mr. Miller know if you need help.